Okay. All right. Let me let
Nessip's here.
what's that? Oh, good, 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 good. Okay, it's recording. I'll take care of it. Well, hello there. Turn your mic on, please, when you get a minute.
Said hi, guys.
Good. How are you?
Good, good. How's everything? How are you feeling today?
Much better. Thank you for asking. Do I sound better?
You sound better.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What was it? I'm drinking my tea because my throat really gave out the other night. I've got Mac bringing up the consumer guide. He just logged into Loop. And if you look, Mac, let me see here, because it's been a while since I've done this. Go to templates and see on the left side. Go to should have KW forms in there, buyers forms. Look for buyer forms or listing, it doesn't matter.
Listing packet forms.
Yeah, and then you should, one of the things you
Okay.
can find, and then when you get in
Right
there,
here.
okay, and
Consumer
then
guide to agency.
consumer guide. There you go.
Okay.
So you can print that out, and here's Nessa, what you didn't hear, welcome, glad you're here. You doing all right?
Yes.
Okay.
I was actually logged in and it said you were in another meeting and I was waiting.
Well,
So I
here we
logged
are.
off and logged back in and
Got us. Okay.
it worked.
So we're going to bounce back and forth between buyers and sellers tonight. And we're going to tackle buyers first. But what I want you to know is that with either buyers or sellers, the very first document you're going to want to get your hands on is the consumer guide. And you already know that probably. You've probably already had some experience with it. But you have to let your clients know how they're going to be represented. And are you going to represent the buyers? You're going to represent the sellers? And if so, what are their expectations? What can they understand from you? This document is required by the division. It does not require it to be signed. Almost everybody will sign it because it's for their benefit. It's not a contract. It says so on there. It just says that this is how Mr. Seller or Mr. Buyer, this is how you're going to be represented. And that a buyer's agent is devoted to you and a seller's agent is devoted to you. And if there were an occasion where you might be a dual agent, that's fully explained in the document. But what I told Mac is that I would suggest that you carry these in your car so that you have those readily available. Let's say you're going to meet at a coffee shop, or you're going to have a buyer's meeting, or you're going to go to somebody's home and they love you and they decide they want you to list their property. You're going to want that consumer guide to be handy. Okay. What I don't want is I don't want you to be forgetful and then go and put an offer together and then your consumer guide is dated the same as your offer. That's not cool. Don't want to see that, because you should have already explained the role that you're going to play with the customer once they become a client, that you're either going to be their buyer's agent or you're going to be their listing agent. Does that make sense? Okay. Now I'm going to share my screen again so I can get through. Where'd they go? All right.
So at what point in the conversation is the best time to bring this up? Like, is it when they actually ask for help for something?
Well,
or...
it's described from the state as the first kind of meaningful conversation. So if you're just meeting for coffee and just shooting the breeze and there's nothing serious going on and they're just gaining information, that I wouldn't call it that kind, and you don't have to do it at an open house. But when you go to somebody's house on a listing and you're there to, give them your spiel as to whether you can represent them or not, that's the time you need to put out and say, this is how you're going to be represented. And I'd like you to look at the consumer guide and I'd like to explain this to you, how I would represent your interest as your listing agent. And it talks about representing the sellers. If you go down and look at this document, the Keller Williams document is going to be different. This is a generic, oh no, this is, all right, let me get rid of that one. Look at what it says there, and it fully explains the role as a buyer seller. Let me do this for you. I want to stop my screen share again for a minute. Give me a second. I get up here. There we go.
So do they only sign that when they like officially want you to be their agent?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
No.
No. Give me
Okay.
just a second. All right. I don't want to confuse you. No, when you are just having a conversation, let me turn it around. Let's talk about buyers. If you're meeting with buyers, you're meeting in the office or meeting somewhere, and they're talking about buying a property, and you're having conversation about the market and all this stuff, and you have a conversation with them about how they would be represented, they would only be represented if they hired you to be their buyer's representative, their buyer's agent.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I
If
knew what I was like getting them into, you know what I mean?
Well, okay, here's the thing. That is only an explanation document as to how they're going to be represented. It's required by the state. It's not a contract.
Okay.
Now, you're gonna very often, you're gonna use it when you're having a discussion with potential buyers. And maybe they've changed their mind and they're not gonna buy right now. They're gonna wait a few months or wait a year or whatever. And you've had the discussion with them, you should put the buyers, the consumer guide in front of them and have them sign it. And then you keep it in your file. And by the way, you need to keep that stuff for 3 years. If they never turn up again, you still need to keep that in your file for 3 years.
Okay.
Okay? And because you're so new at this, it's gonna be difficult for me to fully explain to you all the machinations right now, because it's not gonna make sense to you. Okay, I mean, you just got licensed a week or two ago.
Yeah.
So a lot of this will stick, but a lot of it won't. So I'm gonna
Okay.
try to take you through that. Nessip, on the other hand, has had some experience and has been around it. So for him, a lot of this is going to say, yeah, I understand that. And it's important. The bottom line on Consumer Guide, it's a mandated form by the state. You really need to know what it says. You really should read through it, get familiar with it, get comfortable with it, and how to explain it to a potential buyer or seller as to how they're going to be represented. It's that simple. But either way, buyers or sellers, that is the first document that you would have signed or be in touch with in your journey with the buyer and seller.
Okay.
Okay. All right. If we're talking about buyers, and we are, what we're talking about is representation. And remember, I told you the other night that you are on a job interview and you are interviewing to have them hire you to either be their listing agent or their buyer's agent. And if you are hired as a buyer's agent, you have to remember that all commissions are negotiable. And I want you to have that discussion with somebody at Keller Williams in terms of what to say and what to do to have that discussion about your commissions, who pays the commission. Same thing with the sellers. The seller doesn't always pay the commission. All of those terms and amounts are negotiable. You've got to leave that wide open, but you need to have, and again, in your packet in Dot Loop, you'll have an exclusive right to represent the buyer. And that is a contract with the buyer for representation. And it's very important that you have that. And I believe it's mandatory at Greater Columbus that you have a buyer's representation agreement. Okay, any questions? Okay, we'll move on. The buyer's interview, when you're meeting with your buyers and your sellers, this is kind of crisscross. It can go back and forth, but your job is to really set expectations. Now, you're going to have to learn scripting. You're going to have to learn the words. You're going to have to learn a buyer's presentation, and it's all there for you. It's either in command or it's in your book. That's somewhere that you can get your hands on it. I believe it's in that white book. Nessip, did you pick up your white book?
I was in the office yesterday, but I couldn't see any white book, and Rachel
Mhm.
wasn't in the office, so I
Well,
couldn't ask anybody.
okay. They are in the training room, and they are in a cabinet in the training room. At the back of the training room, if you're standing looking at the screen in the front of the room,
Yeah,
On the left side, there's this little bank of cabinets.
yeah.
The far
Okay.
left cabinet, you'll see white notebooks in there. You need to get one. Make sure that Pam knows that you have it. And Max, same thing, that you've got your book or that you need to get your book. Austin can help you. Pam can help you. Rachel can help you, but you want to make sure you get your hands on that book. Okay,
Okay.
because it has way more in it than what I'm teaching you. It has the after stuff that you're going to need to work with your mentors, your teams, and so on. Okay, these are the things that you really have to know when you're having a discussion with your buyers and your sellers. But right now we're talking about buyers. So you have to set the expectations. What is the current market? What's happening in the current market? What is the current inventory? What are they looking for? What are they in for? And that's part of your discussion. There is a whole script and I think it's in your book. I believe it is, in terms of your discussion with them for your questions. And it is a questionnaire. I call it a cheat sheet because it really gives you what you need to say and what you need to ask. It shows them that you're very interested. It shows them that you're very detail oriented. You're going to ask them all of the information that you need to have so that you can best help them in their search. Okay. So even if you're new, you seem like a pro because you're asking all the right questions to qualify them. And one of the first things you're going to be asking a buyer is, how long have they been looking, and has anyone helped them? Have they signed any documents with anybody? You want to make sure they're free and clear, that they're not already engaged and just playing you or using you. All right. So you want to make sure that you have that conversation. And also, have they selected a lender? Have they had any discussions with a lender? Because I don't know of many agents that are going to be ready, willing, and able to start showing people property that have not had a conversation as to their qualifications and price range with a lender. I mean, typically they should have selected a lender or at least had a beginning conversation. If they say that they have gone to their bank, I would be concerned about if it's, for example, if it's Chase or PNC or whatever, they can do the job and they do have mortgage lending. But I would suggest that you also talk to your mentors and trainers about other lending partners that can give them more of a mortgage feel. Maybe the rates will be better, maybe the terms will be better. And also, I can tell you that a choice of lender is going to be very critical in the overall final selection of a seller choosing which offer to take. If offers stack up even Steven all the way down the line, and the bottom line gets to lender, and it's between a good mortgage lender and a bank, chances are the seller is going to want to go with a mortgage lender potential rather than a bank, because there are too many horror stories with it falling apart or last minute needs and so on in underwriting when a bank is involved, and Chase in particular. Now, I understand they've changed that up a lot. They may not be as bad, and their reputation may have been redeemed of late.
Do you know anything about my local bank? The bank, so like the bank I go to is Huntington. And then we have Century National over here in
All
Dresden, I
right.
believe.
Well, Huntington is very, very good at the
Okay.
mortgage lending. And they're very, very good in terms of what they call jumbos, which are large loans, doctors, professionals, and so on. When you get
Yeah.
into the higher end stuff, they all have great programs. Most of the lenders have programs different from each other. They have similarities, but they have different programs that are available. You always should have 3 lenders, 3 title folks, 3 inspectors, and so on, at least 3, so that you give your clients a choice.
So do you think it'd be a good idea to maybe go set up an appointment at Huntington to talk to them about something like that?
Absolutely.
Okay. How would you go about that? Just tell
Well,
them
okay,
that I'm a realtor?
do you know Stephanie Bush?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, I believe that she is the president of your association in Zanesville.
Okay, yeah, I think I might have talked to her on the phone because I think the girl I talked to on the phone for the Muskingum board when I was calling to figure that stuff out, I think her name was Stephanie.
Tell her I said hi, tell her that you're one of my students, and she will help you. Now, there are a multitude of affiliate partners in that region, in that area. And I
Okay.
think I would get a list from the association and let them guide you as to who to talk to, but certainly Huntington would be one good one.
I'm gonna write that on my whiteboard real quick.
Of course. Okay. All right. Nessa, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good so far.
Okay. Um, you really have to know, and I want you to start talking in terms of market. When we have a discussion about what's going on, we want to refer to the market conditions, market prices, the market is indicating whatever. Stay away from terminology about selling and sales and that type of thing. I want to make sure that we discuss it from the market's perspective, because the market really is going to be driving everything that we do. So it's market inventory, it's market price, etc. We
Okay,
good?
so I have wrote down contact board about mortgage lenders, people for
These
titles.
are called, okay, the people that provide realtor services are called affiliates.
Okay.
And you want to talk to Stephanie Bush. That's Stephanie. Okay. So this little chart is just giving you an overview as to what should be included in your sphere in terms of your knowledge and part of the discussions that you're going to be having with potential buyers. You have to set the expectation. What is the market reflecting? Back to the market. What is the market reflecting now? What is their anticipation? You have to find out what are their expectations? What do they think they're going to find? How are they even qualified? You know, before you start, you know, where are you in the process? Where are they in the process? Let's assume they hire you. So the expectation is there are limited resources. There's limited property. Perhaps, you know, once you start to narrow down their search, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-story with a basement, once you start to narrow all this stuff down, the total amount of inventory, which you will find in MLS, by the way, and you should be checking that every day, will give you an idea as to where you are in your search for the buyers. What is available to them in their area. Now, maybe they have a wide area. So the more you narrow it, the less opportunity and less inventory you're going to have available to you. So if they say, hey, we're good on the east side, so that could be Reynoldsburg, Gahanna, New Albany, and Pataskala, and so on. Once they say, no, I don't want to go to Pickerington and Pataskala, I want to just stay in Reynoldsburg. Well, now you've gone Black Lick and Gahanna, and it gets more narrow and more narrow. When they say the type of property, when they say the size of the property, and then of course price, it's all going to limit you in terms of how much availability there will be, and you need to talk to them about the availability. What is available to them within their range of expectations? Make sense?
Yep.
So you have to set the expectations and have that discussion. And what's going to happen, like I say, there is a whole script that gives you a line item by line item conversation to have so that you can cover all your bases. But you want to make sure that they're qualified. When are they ready? When do they want to move? You know, what's the money availability? Are they paying cash? Are they financing it? What's going on with that? Do they have their credit worthiness? I mean, can they apply for a loan, or have they a mortgage, or have they done that already, and so on. You want to talk about the average days on market, because if you find something, and when you find something, it may be the first property you look at, and you want to prime them and prep them for when that might happen. So if you show them 4 houses and the first property that you show them matches their laundry list of stuff that they like, you might want to say, look, we'll look at the rest of them, but we may want to go back after we look at the other three and write up an offer because time is of the essence. In other words, it's very competitive. And so you want to also tell them how competitive the marketplace is in terms of being able to get their offer in ASAP. You also have the discussion with them about limiting their wish list from the seller, that the more barriers they put in the way, the more they ask for, the more narrow their opportunity becomes. You definitely want to have them have an inspection. They can waive repairs or remedies, but they really should make sure that they have an inspection. There are going to be documents and forms and so on for virtually every step of what you're going to be doing with your buyers. So that when you get into a transaction, which by the way, is called an opportunity in command. So if you look at command, you'll see that there, and it all jumps from your database. So the more you put in your database, you have to have potential buyers and sellers in your database before you can start a transaction or an opportunity. And that's another whole lesson and discussion from the Keller side.
So if the buyers want an inspection, is that at the cost of them or the seller?
Buyers typically pay for inspection.
Okay.
And they're gonna run, let's say, in the $500 range, could be more or less,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, that's definitely something they probably want to do then. That's not too
Oh, there's
bad.
no doubt about it, no. In the heyday, a couple years ago, people were giving up inspections and giving up all kinds of stuff, and it was just pandemonium, it was just crazy time.
Have you ever heard any horror stories about that? Anything
Lots,
crazy?
lots of buyer's remorse right now, people that bought a couple years ago and didn't have it inspected, lots of horror stories, yes.
It got really expensive a couple years ago, I remember, houses.
And it still is. The one thing that you absolutely, both of you absolutely have to know, it is part of your expected, or required, is you have to know the current market conditions. And you must go and take your MLS training for Flex 1 and 2 and learn how to utilize the system that's in there for looking at property and for setting up portals and for getting your buyers all set up.
Is the MLS training something through Keller Williams?
No,
Or
it's MLS.
Okay.
It's called Flex 1 and 2.
Okay.
All right. The current sale price to the list price, it's all over the map. Look, the property, the value of a property is what a buyer is willing to pay. I don't care what it's been appraised at. The lender wants to know that it's going to meet the appraisal because they need their loan terms covered. But for a buyer and seller, for a buyer can offer anything they want and will pay whatever they feel comfortable paying. And it happened a lot over the last few years that they paid darn near anything. And it was just nutso. And a lot of it has come back to haunt them now, but it also drives the prices crazy. So you really need to understand what's going on in a particular area and what are the sale prices, what have they been in comparison to the original list price? Did it go out at list? Did it go out below list? Did it go out above list? Where are we? And when you are starting a search for buyers and you're looking in particular search areas, because that's where they want to be. Let's say, I don't know, let's say Dublin or Powell or Lewis Center or whatever. You need to do your search within, let's say, a mile or two radius of where they want to be, because different subdivisions represent different prices, different areas. Some are better, some are worse, some move faster. And then take a look and see what the last sales have done. And you're going to be doing what's called a comparative market analysis, which is called the CMA. Make sense, Mac? You getting it?
Yeah.
Does that term sound familiar to you?
Competitive market analysis?
Yeah,
Yeah.
CMA. Okay. And then they're going to ask what you are seeing in the market. And again, remove yourself from the equation. I want you to remember that you're going to be talking about what the market reflects, the market is showing, the market is saying. Terms like that are preferable, because when you pigeonhole yourself, now you're the opinion maker rather than the market being the opinion. And it's the market that's driving everything. Doesn't matter what you think or what you say. You can render an opinion, but I'd rather have you point to the market as the decision, the decision maker as to what's going on, because it is. All right, makes sense? When you meet with buyers, it should be, hopefully, I hope you're first through the door. And I hope you have an opportunity to razzle dazzle to the extent that you get them to fall in love with you and they will hire you. You're on a job interview. When you're going out to meet with buyers and you're going out to listing, you're on a job interview. It's that simple. And you want them to think that you can do the job, that you can represent them the best, that you've got the skills and the desire to pay attention to their needs. So we listen. You would have a preliminary interview, probably on a phone, where it's kind of a getting to know you. And then you would meet. I would prefer that you meet at the office in a professional environment, but if you can't, then I would suggest you meet in a quiet, Panera or a Starbucks or someplace like that. Okay. Questions? You should have in your stuff buyers, your games, your rules. Do you have that in your handouts? It's a 4 or 5 page sheet that says buyers, your games, your rules. It looks like that.
I'm looking for it. I accidentally closed it out.
If you find it, would you bring it up? I'm gonna stop my share for a minute.
Show me what it looked like again. Oh, never mind.
Oh, hold on, I blurred my background. Just a second.
You can blur your background?
Yep. There.
Not in the first one, but there's two. Oh, yep, right here.
Okay.
Okay, let me screen
Why
share.
don't you bring it up for me? And let's go through this. Buyers are going to come from everywhere. Remember, your initial business probably is going to come from friends or family. It's going to probably come from your sphere, people that know you, that trust you. When you start doing some of the lead gen stuff we talked about, I hope. Did you go to Starbucks today, Nessa?
Yes, I did.
How did it go?
I'm watching for now.
Oh, okay. Well, then let me ask you this. Did you see somebody who looked familiar that'd been there before?
Yeah, that's the thing. I haven't seen anybody I've seen before. Like,
All right, well, now you know what to look for.
yes.
Okay. Your lead gen, let me say this, your lead gen and your database are what? That's the name of the game right there. You've got to build your contact database, feed your database, and it will feed you, and your lead gen has to be thought of to be done every day. That's just got to be a commitment, because those two things will make you money. You can pivot from those, and it's the best advice I can give you. All right, let's talk about buyers, your games, your rules. Where do they come from? Well, they come from obviously your referrals, open houses, your calls, your emails, Starbucks, internet advertising, social media, and all that good stuff. So when you kind of agonize about, well, where's my business going to come from? Well, you're not going to agonize over that, because I just gave you 200 ways to find leads. So if you can't find something in there, then we got a problem. So, but once you have them, you really want to try to be the first through the door to have a meeting. Your goal, remember we talked about it the other night, that you want your goal to be an in-person meeting. That is that's the crux of what you're doing. When you have leads and you're doing lead generation, your end game really to get the ball rolling is, remember what I said, the engagement. You need to engage, you need to talk to people, you need to look them in the eye and build that confidence and that trust and get them to like you. And then from there, you can build a relationship. Because if you can't get in front of them and you can't establish their needs and they can't meet you and decide if you're the person that they want to do business with, then you got nothing anyway, right? So you're not going to do business over the phone. You're going to do business in person. Like anything else, you're going to have to establish a relationship. That is the business that we're in. So I'm hoping that you can be the first through the door to meet with them somewhere. Now, again, and here's a note, you can start making some of these notes. When you meet with your buyers, there are a couple things. Obviously, potential financing is one, very important. You want them to know what the current market conditions are. And you also want to know what their flex points are. Because buyers, there's a saying, buyers are liars, and it's not that they're liars. It's just that they don't completely understand. They don't completely understand what they really need or want until they start looking. Maybe they say, I want this, this, and this, and they turn around, they buy this, this, and this. Completely opposite of what they started out with. So until you have a questionnaire, until you can sit down and really dig for information and you have to listen to them, it's going to be hard for you to try to help until you can kind of get through to the nitty gritty and say, okay, what can we afford? Are we qualified? How long is it going to take? How long, where are they now? Are they renting? Do they have to sell? What's the deal here? When you're talking about buyers, we have to get to their bottom line as to how can we help them, and is it possible for us to help them in the current situation? Maybe you're talking to somebody, and Mac, this will apply to you a lot. First-time home buyers, young buyers who maybe are living in an apartment, but they have a good job. They've been on the job for a while. They make a good income. Their credit is good, and they don't want to rent anymore. They don't want to throw that money down the tubes, and that you can help them. But you've got to know what the situation is. How long is their lease? When can they pull the trigger?
That's probably most of the people I know, honestly, people that live in apartments.
Exactly. And that's what I said to you the other night. That's a perfect niche for you, is for you to try to target that market for yourself. Now, are
Yeah.
you talking about people that live in your area?
Yeah. Yeah. I know a lot of people that rent.
Well,
I only know outside of family, only a few people that actually own houses right now.
go get them, buddy. Go get them. I mean, that's perfect market action plan for your business plan, is to, and in there it talks about your marketing plan. Say, go after first-time home buyers and become an expert at it. Learn everything you can and become an expert. Be a great market for you. All right. So you want to have your buyer understand the current market conditions. What's going on now in Mac, in your area? It's going to be very different than here in Central Columbus.
Yeah.
So you have to know what the current marketplace is there, and what are their flex points. In other words, got to have a 4-bedroom house. Well, would you take a 3-bedroom and a den, 3-bedroom and a study? What is that 4th bedroom representing? Got to have a finished basement. Well, will you take a home with a basement that you can finish? Are you willing to put something into this? Where are we? Because there's not ever going to be a perfect property. There will be a laundry list or a wish list of things, but we may not be able to hit every point. So where can we flex up? Can we fence a yard? Is it okay to have a garage, but it's a detached garage? Or does it have to be attached? There are things that you can flex up, okay? Just depends on what are they really looking for and how can you fulfill those needs. This game your rules is really self-explanatory. I'm just going to go through and give you some notes on it because you can take the time to read this on your own. I'm not going to go through chapter and verse, ridiculous waste of your time. Down in the middle, kind of 2/3 down, it says your game. I want you to put in there or make a note, control your buyers. We have got to control our buyers and sellers. And what do I mean by control them? I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in that we have to control the situation so that we can get the best information and do the best job possible on their behalf. But if we can't figure out what they're telling us and we can't figure out what's going on with them, we're just flipping around, exploring all kinds of stuff. And you got to kind of rein it in. Where are we in the grand scheme of things? What's going on here? How do we tackle this? So some of these notes I'm going to give you, you can just make a laundry list of if you want, but controlling your buyers is something you really need to do. And then, communication. Communication with buyers and sellers is the same thing. You want them to know that they are top of mind, that you are a good communicator, that you want to give them information on a fairly regular basis without them having to find you or haunt you or figure out what's going on. So if you set the rules early on and say, I would like to communicate with you at least once a week, if that's okay with you. And if so, what day and time works best for you? Because maybe they got kids, maybe they work, maybe they sleep, I don't know. So you want to find out what day and time works best for them. And by the way, we talked about this the other night, didn't we? How would we like them to communicate with us? Text, email, or phone. And then do it. And make your notes as you're making your notes in your buyer's consultation. All of these things are going to be part of your note taking, but you need to find out about communication because you've got to be a good communicator in this business. You're not going to have your clients stay with you very long if they get frustrated. Nessip, you told me horror stories about 3 of them, and I guarantee one of them was communication. They probably didn't communicate very well. Would that have been one of the reasons that you were frustrated?
Yeah, communication, and I felt like neglected and didn't get enough guidance. Yeah.
If you had heard from them on a regular basis, you wouldn't have felt neglected because you could have asked the questions, you could have gotten the information, and so on. So good communication is really part of what we do. So I want you to also think in terms of when you're dealing with buyers that new builds are an option. So if they want a home that's already, a resale option, then you might want to consider talking to them about new builds. Okay. And the new build representatives are people that you want to get to know. You should go out to, I think your homework basically that I gave you was to meet with, a couple builder reps and go out and preview the properties and so on. Okay. Sorry, I'm losing it again. Okay. So choice of lenders matters. Make that note because I talked to you about earlier about the fact that if you have a bank and you have a mortgage lender, it just depends on who the players are and what their reputations are and how acceptable that's going to be to a seller's agent, to a listing agent. In MLS, there is what is called a portal. So if you go into MLS and you can look for your contacts, it'll say add contacts. You can add yourself as a contact, and you can also add your client contacts in there. And for your buyers, you can set up a portal. Well, that gets them out of Zillow, hopefully. That tells them that you can give them real-time access to what's available on the market. So you put in a list of categories or amenities that they've asked you for, and you plug that in, you set up a whole search. It's based on a search and it's search criteria. And as soon as new properties hit the market in their price range with that kind of match, it's going to pop up to you and it's going to pop up to them. And then they can go through there and they can kind of manipulate that as the need be. I mean, maybe every night they want to come and sit in front of their computer and look and see what's in the portal. And they go, oh, I like that one, and that one. And Mac, I want you to show me this. Let's set up the showings and we're going to look at those 3. No, I didn't like those other 2. So it's real time. It's an asset to you to be able to manipulate the portal part of MLS to set it up on behalf of a client. So make sure you understand how to do that. The expectations piece I already talked to you about, the fact that if you show them 2, 3, 4 places, it could be the first one you looked at. And you could just stop right there and go write your offer. But they have to understand you're not being annoying and you're not being aggressive. You're being spot on, because if you drag your feet, we're not going to have an opportunity at it. And that's what the market is reflecting today. That's how you have to say that the market is showing that if you find something, are you prepared for us to go back and write an offer ASAP? You need to know that. And what is their financial threshold? What are they comfortable doing? And what are they qualified for? So let's say you have a buyer who's been approved for $350,000. Do you want to show them $350,000 properties? Probably not.
You want to show them whatever they want.
You want to show them properties that match their criteria, but I would say under 350, up to 350, because chances are you're going to have to accelerate beyond that. So if they're only comfortable at 350 and you need to have these discussions, where are you comfortable in terms of your monthly payment? Where are you comfortable in terms of our offering? How much can we go over for you? Because we might have to. In all probability, we will have to offer more. We may not, but possibly we will have that situation. So you don't want to come hit their top threshold and you've completely screwed yourself out of the market. You know, you just don't want to do that. So work within a range that's comfortable. Maybe a $50,000 swing.
Well, I bet if you get them a house, it's exactly what they want for 250. They're not going to be upset about the gain of $100,000.
That's true, but good luck with that, my friend. I don't think that's going to happen. Not today's market. All right. You should have a KW app that will allow you to do things remotely from your phone. So check it out and see if you have an app that you can utilize.
They had me get that yesterday.
Well, you may have gotten it yesterday. All right. In MLS, when you start to identify property for showings, there will be a showing service, and your showings will be set up through the showing service. In most likely 95% of the properties, there'll be a few that will be outside of that. Most will be with a showing service, or they'll be with a brokerage that sets up their own showings. But the bottom line is there will be some kind of a showing person, a showing apparatus that will set it up for you. Because of the MLS rules, one of the things you have to do is you have to know and understand the MLS rules as it pertains to showings, as it pertains to appointments, as it pertains to lock boxes and all that good stuff. So until you are capable of getting listings, you're not going to need to buy any signs, and you're probably not going to need to buy any lock boxes until you absolutely need to have them. For now, I think you're both going to be okay to either work with somebody in the office or whatever. I don't know what their situation is on that, but I wouldn't go out and run and buy signs and lock boxes right away until you know you're going to get some listings. However, when you get into MLS, and MLS is a critical piece of your work, you're going to be in MLS virtually every day. You're either going to be doing searches, or you're going to be looking at conditions and what's sold and what's, in contract and all that stuff. So you will have to know MLS inside and out. And one of the things that when it pertains to showings, and you've made your showing appointments through the showing services, there are 2 sheets in MLS. One says agent and one says public or other or whatever. And so the agent one has all the full information, including who the listing agent is and all their information. That is not the one you give to your customer, to your client. When you go to show, you give them the one that's for them. It is a reduced size and it only has what pertains to the property. It does not have any contact information on the listing agent or anything else that they can get their hands on. So you should print those out. And when you are ready for showings, what you do is you put them in some kind of an order. So you're not going to go from Grove City to Reynoldsburg and then to Powell, and you're not going to jump all around and crisscross all over. That would be ridiculous. So you can go into maps. There's just so much to tell you, but in MLS, when you're in the listing, you can go to the maps and you can map out where these things are. And then you can put in several property addresses and you can actually map them out. So you can have here, 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 and here, however you decide to do it. Typically, we meet our clients at the first one and then we caravan to the second, third, fourth, and whatever we're doing. And you will have, I would suggest that you have a clipboard or something to give them, or a folder, a nice folder, and give them their MLS sheets, and they can make all their notes on it. And as they're driving around, typically it's partners and families, there's usually a couple of them, and one can make the notes and they can chat about it privately in their cars and meet you at the property. Okay, access to the lock boxes. You should have your key, your e-key that you've paid for to be able to open a lockbox. And if you have a code, if it's on somebody's garage or it's on their front door or on the door handle, you never, ever, 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 ever give that to anybody, period. And try to protect it when you're opening it so that it's kept private. That is a huge, huge problem in terms of discipline. Questions so far? Okay.
Nope.
Part of the part of the conversation that you're going to have with your clients in your initial conversation, remember you've got all these expectations and stuff, is you're going to let them know that if we make an appointment at a property and we get to the property, get to the front of the property, and Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you tell me, nah, that's not going to work for me. Didn't see the big tree, didn't see this, didn't see whatever. Let's just go, I'm not even interested. Or it was so despicable, they didn't even want to look at it. You made a showing appointment. You got to do a couple things. Number one, you have to prep them to say, we have a showing appointment. I'm going to excuse myself from you for just a couple minutes. Go into the property, unlock it, go into the property and put your card down, and then come out and call the showing service and let the showing service know that your buyer has decided not to review the property, but please thank the sellers. The sellers go through a lot of preparation, most of them, to show their property. And it is a very unprofessional thing just to drive by and blow it off. We don't do that. So I want you to maintain your professionalism, but you must cancel that showing. So you call the showing service, it's on the sheet, you have all the information. You call the showing service, say, my clients have decided not to review the property. Thank you very much for the showing, and you move on. Now, within 24 hours, I want you to get in the habit of sending a showing feedback. You will have in your text or an email from the showing service, what did your client think? Are they ready to make an offer? Da 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 da. And you have to report to them, or should. A lot of agents blow it off and they don't do it, which is extremely rude and unprofessional. And that's not you. So you should give a positive something about that property. Nice location, love the front, the bushes were trimmed beautifully, something, one thing about it in a positive way. And then of course you can say then whatever you need to say in a positive feedback manner. But it's got to be done as soon as possible and no longer than 24 hours after the showing. Okay? That's how a good professional agent would operate. Because here's what happens when we start getting into selling a little bit and listing. The sellers go through a lot of preparation. They've also, as listing agents, probably had a discussion with the listing agent about, I want to list it for this price, and if you want to list my house, that's what it's going to be, and we already know it's priced too high. So if you show it, or you give feedback that my client thought it was priced too high, they start to see a pattern. And it just helps soothe things out and make sense for listing agents, for sellers. Sellers have to have a reality check as to what's going on. I'll talk to you more about that once we get into the seller part. Okay? So no drive-bys. Honor your showing appointments and cancel whatever.
Do you want me to keep screen sharing or stop?
No, you can keep screen sharing. I'm on,
Okay.
and see, here's what happens. I've got all those where they are appropriate. I guess you could forget it. I want to go through this sheet though. I'm now on the 3rd page and I've got a ton of notes. And the reason I do this is because as you go through here, if you were in the classroom and we were sitting there, you'd be making these notes right on this.
Okay.
And that's what would be most helpful. Unfortunately, with a Zoom thing like this, we just don't get to do that. So I'll do the best I can for you. Let's see. Writing the offer. You have to establish the rapport, obviously. Let's see. Oh, price and terms. Price and terms is if they're already pre-qualified. Now you can have the discussion as to prices and terms and when they want to move and all this kind of stuff. What's going on with that? So if you look at halfway, well, you're out of there. But writing the offer, it's on this sheet. You want to make sure that the loan is in place. And when you talk to your buyers about getting a loan, a mortgage, this is really important stuff. When they're getting ready to qualify for a loan and they talk to a lender, the lender is going to have them provide certain documents and certain information. Part of that information is their employment. How long have they been employed? How much do they make? And so on. They don't change anything. They don't buy anything on time. They don't buy anything on credit. They don't buy anything that they can't consume in their mouth on credit, period. I don't want them to buy a refrigerator, a new car, change jobs. Nothing changes because when they get qualified and approved, we want approval. We don't want qualification. Everybody qualifies because I've got a heartbeat and a breath. So we want pre-approval. So when we get a client pre-approved, we want to make sure that we can follow it all the way through to the end of the transaction. And I can't tell you the horror stories, I could, about dummies that don't pay attention and they'll go and they'll change jobs or they'll buy a piece of jewelry or they'll, get a new dog or something and they'll put it on a credit card. And it's ridiculous. You're in the process of buying a piece of property. Stay with it and don't do anything else. That is part of your expectation discussion at the beginning of the conversation. When we meet with a lender, when you get pre-approved, nothing changes. Okay? Because the wheels will stop. They'll come off the bus and it may not be good. So make sure that you get them to understand that. Contingent sales, if you look on your sheet, you'll say contingent. The more contingencies that are in the offers and the more things the buyers want, the less chance they have of getting them. Okay, we do not put chattel. Do you remember what chattel is from your test? In other
I
words,
can't remember.
personal property.
Okay.
So when you have, I want the sofa, I want the pool table, I want the kids' play set in the back, I want, they want it all. Well, put the brakes on. Let's figure out what is appropriate, what will get you the property. And if you really want those things, we can do a separate bill of sale outside of the mortgage because the lender does not want to see it on a contract. So it doesn't belong there. And they don't want that to muddy the waters. They're not going to finance it. So it doesn't belong there. But if the buyers want to make a deal with the sellers, let's say the sellers actually do want to sell that stuff and the buyer would like to buy it. they can do a bill of sale outside of the contract between the buyer and the seller. And you'll learn that from your mentors and trainers. Nessip, you're awful quiet.
I'm listening. I mean, all you said is spot on. I heard really horror stories about after somebody being qualified, going on a vacation, going to Disney and stuff like that. And it is so true. And you know, it impacts the closing and all that. So
I
yeah.
like the example of buying a puppy on a credit card. I did not know
You
people
find a
do that.
$2,000 or $3,000 French bulldog. Oh yeah.
Uh-oh.
I mean, it happens. Oh, it happens. Got to have that new doggy in your new house. Not yet.
Sheesh.
Okay. So, it's very important that when you talk to your buyers and let them know that when they are in the process of getting a loan, that they have got to chop, get the lender everything and anything ASAP. Drop everything else and get the lender everything they need so that it does not put the brakes on or detain or delay the loan process. The faster they can get it to them, the smoother the transaction. And by the way, when you're in a contract, which we will talk about tomorrow night. Yeah. So when we talk about contracts, that is a time-sensitive document. And we have to perform. It's a performance document. And there are going to be dates and times that we have to make sure that we are on time for, that we follow, okay? So we want to make sure that we get the lender everything that we possibly can as soon as possible. Let's see. All right. Let me see what else here. Mac, you got it. You got good questions and you guys are spot on. I appreciate that. All right, any other notes? Let's see. Your offerings, your all of those things are coming through command. I told you have to have all of your clients in your contact database in order to initiate an opportunity. And the opportunity is the little hands. You'll see the little icons. And that's how you start an opportunity. It will ask you, do you want a buyer opportunity or a seller opportunity? And then you pick that template and you work through it. I don't train in that. You'll learn that, but I just want you to be familiar when you hear it. You'll say, oh yeah, I remember Carol talked about that.
So
Okay.
speaking of command, I just got like it was a notification from command that I got a new lead. And I was wondering how that happened because I haven't like
Yeah, there are some spams
done
come. I
anything.
had one too, so
So are
don't
they
answer.
fake or something?
Yeah, they
No,
might be fake. What's the name?
His name's Georgie.
Let me see. Sometimes
It's
I get,
just it's only an email. It has no phone. It's just an email. I'm not
yeah,
sure how
probably
it happened.
it's scam because I got one and mine was not our Pamela, but something similar.
Okay. So worth trying something though?
No, don't
Sending
answer.
emails still? Okay.
Don't answer.
okay. Let's go back to this. The last point on these pages that these notes pertain to. Very, very, very important for you guys. It is important for you to use a transaction timeline. Looks kind of like this. This transaction timeline. It will save your butt and it will save so much aggravation. Here's what happens. When you get into contract, and when you're new at this and you only have one or two deals going on, it's no big thing. But if I train you right and you learn now, it will save you down the road when you get really busy. You cannot juggle all these things and remember everything. So when you got 4 or 5 deals going on at the same time or more, which a lot of these agents do, something has to keep you tracked and in place, as well as your clients, because your clients are obliged contractually to follow the timeline and perform within a certain date and time. And the only way they're going to remember to do that is if you have an administrator or you or a transaction timeline that can say, by this date, I gotta do this, by this date, I gotta do this, and so on. So a transaction timeline, I think, is a very critical piece of your work that you should include in every transaction that you do, whether it's buy or sell. And you give a copy to the other side, meaning the co-op, and you give a copy to your clients. And everybody's pulling the same weight. And when you give it to the other side, you ask them to review it and make sure that what you put in there does in fact match their expectations. And they do this, and we do this, and you do this, and I do this, and so on. And have them take a look at it, and everybody pulls the same weight. If something is not going to happen by that date and time, you will have to have an amendment. You'll have to amend it to have all parties review it and look at it and agree to another date and time. And that now becomes part of the contract. But these don't get changed without some kind of a written agreement with all the parties acknowledging it and getting to see it. So very important, but I would suggest you use a transaction timeline. Now, the other thing that I want you to know is we talked about inspections. And this I do want you to write down. When you're dealing with buyers, they're not going to get the sun, the moon, and the stars. They're just not going to get it. They can ask for it, and they're not going to get it. The inspector is there to review the property, to look at it. There is no perfect house. Even a brand new house has a punch list. It's not perfect. So here's what I want you to remember to have a discussion with them about. The inspector is going to come and inspect the property, depending upon the condition. The things that we are most interested in, that we should be most interested in, are health. I'm going to want you to write them down. Health, safety, structural, mechanical. Those 4 things, and I added 2 more. Windows and roof. Those are the big ticket items. Those are the things that are expensive to repair. I don't care if there's a crooked something, light switch. GFIs are all there on the time. Wiggly toilets are there all the time. That's all important stuff. And you can nitpick and pick and choose. But
Say windows and roof.
Windows and roof.
Okay.
Health, safety, structural, mechanical, windows and roof.
Awesome.
And that's what they should be interested in. And by the way, if a house that you go into matches all their love things that they want, and you go down in the basement and the walls are bowed and they're caving, like, oh no, this is terrible. Not so much. Chances are the structural can be shorn up and straightened up. There's very little that can't be remedied or taken care of. The question is, how willing is the buyer to put up with it? How expensive it will be? How willing is the seller to take care of it? And how do we come to a meeting of the minds between buyer and seller to get this done? Because if this buyer that we have right now is ready, willing, and able, and qualified, and loves the house, and the seller is over here and says, I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it, they can walk. Well, there you go. You've just pushed that one out the door. Now you got to wait for buyer number 2 to come in. May or may not be the same terms, may or may not be as qualified, may or may not, whatever. It's always best to negotiate and make things work between the parties. Then you have a good buyer and you have a good seller. Try to make things work through negotiation. It's always the recommendation instead of letting somebody walk. It just makes no sense to me. Okay. Now your mentors, your trainers may have a different fix on this. I'm just telling you from my experience and what I believe is the right way to affect a sale, and that is to get the parties to the table to negotiate. Everything we do from hello is a negotiation. Everything. So that would be part of it. Anyway, now, something that I told you, I think the other night, but you can write it down or remember it, is that your closing, when you're at the closing table, that is not adios. That's only hello. That's the beginning of life. That's your nurturing part of your trifecta, your engagement, your relationship, and your nurturing. Relationships really begin at the closing table. They must be looked after for life. If you really want to grow your business and you want to be successful and create wealth, You need to stay in touch with the people that already know you have already utilized you and will be your best cheerleaders out there. If you ignore them and you let them go, it's a huge piece of your business that you've just tossed out to somebody else. Okay? So remember that. That's all my notes for there. Now, I have lots of other notes for you. When you have a purchase, here are the documents that you're going to need on the purchase side, not on the listing side. You always need a consumer guide. You should write this down. We're talking about buyers now. An exclusive buyer's representation agreement. A pre-approval letter. Now, let's talk about that for a minute. Let's use your Huntington Bank as an example. Your buyers are pre-approved with Huntington Bank. You've been working with them for a month now looking at property. They've had a pre-approval letter sitting in your file for, a month, 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 2 weeks. Doesn't matter. It does not have, it's only good for a certain amount of time. When you find a property, it's good to know that they're pre-qualified and nothing is pre-approved and nothing has changed. But when you find a property with buyers, you have nothing to attach, nothing. There's no contract unless you have a buyer's representation contract that attaches you. And then if you have a property that they've settled on that you want to make an offer on, now you want to go back to that lender and you want to go back to Huntington and say, I need a pre-approval letter that is address specific. Please write those words down. Address specific. So that means that we're going to make an offer on 123 Main Street for $350,000. My buyer is approved for $400,000. I do not want that pre-approval to say that my buyer is approved for 400. I don't want that in there. And the lenders know this. I want an address specific that they are pre-approved to buy that address, period. So that's what you present to the listing agent when you submit your offer.
So if the buyer changes his mind, let's say, then do I get another pre-approval letter for another address?
Change, oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can get 10 of them. I mean, it is, and here's what happens. A generic pre-approval letter that's old means nothing. A listing agent's going to go get me a new pre-approval current one. And by the way, I want an address specific one. I want to know that this property they are qualified to buy. I don't
Okay.
care what they did last month.
And we have to share that with the seller's listing agent?
Yes, because when you submit your offer to purchase, this is what I'm giving you. Everything I'm giving you now is a list of things that you will submit to the listing agent at the time of offer.
Yeah, that's not a confidential information, right?
No,
Okay.
it's just.
That's what you should want as a listing and a buyer's agent. Correct?
What's that?
As the listing and the buyer's agent, you should want that, like a pre-approval
Absolutely.
for
The listing agent's going to want to show that to the seller. Well, here's why I told you before that that choice of lenders matters. It matters big time, because if you have two buyers, let's say you've got multiple offers coming into the seller, and you have two buyers that are offering similar, maybe it's above list, whatever, their timeline matches the seller's desire. In other words, they can stay or go. I should just throw this at you right now that price is not everything. Cash isn't everything. Cash is good, but if you have a cash offer and you have a finance offer, and the cash offer doesn't match up to what the seller's needs are, they're going to go with the finance offer. Okay? Because it's terms. It's what the seller's needs are. You should always, when you're going to make an offer, contact the listing agent and say, make nice, say, how are you? I just showed 123 Main Street. My buyers are very interested. I'm going back, I showed it this afternoon. I'm going to be preparing an offer. I wanted to reach out to you and find out what are the seller's needs? What can you share with me that's important to the seller? We would like to construct, I have a very strong buyer. I'm planning to write a very strong offer, prepare with a great lender. And what can we talk about together that will help your sellers? In other words, do they need to stay in the property after closing? Do they need a quick get out? In other words, we need to close in like 30 days. Do we need this? Do we need that? Because the terms sometimes will override the price. Let's say that the seller is relocating and they've got starting a new job in Florida and they need a 30-day window and they need to get the heck out of Dodge and they need to take their money and go to Florida. So if you have a buyer who needs to sit in there for 45, 60 days and it's a cash offer because they're in contract on their house, it's probably not going to fly. See what I'm saying? So while cash is a really good idea, it may not be the one that pushes it over the edge. You
Yeah.
may have, go ahead.
So we ask those questions to seller's listing agent before we present the offer.
Sure.
So we make sure that we kind of get close to those points that sellers care about.
You always call the
Okay.
listing agent and make nice. Thank
Okay.
you for the showing. My buyers loved it. I'm going back to make an offer here. I've got a couple questions for you if you have a minute. Do you have a minute? You know, make very nice, very professional. They will greatly appreciate that.
And when we have a cash offer, obviously we don't need the pre-approval letter. Is there
No.
any other letter that we need, like bank
Yes.
statements or like?
No.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that too, because like, say you want to take, say if I want to go to the bank, I want to take like 30 grand out. It probably wouldn't be that simple. You know what I mean? Like, is there anything that the
Well,
buyer needs to do to get a huge
absolutely.
amount of money like that?
Let's go back to the $300,000 example. If your buyer's buying a $300,000 house for cash, which a lot of them can do, you need what's called a proof of funds letter from their bank.
Okay.
I hope you're making a note. Called the
Yes.
proof of funds. In other words, I don't want a copy of their bank statement. You don't want to ever see their bank statements, their checkbooks, their investment portfolio. You don't want to see any of that. It's none of your business. What you do want to know is that their bank, wherever they have that money sitting, is that they can access that at the time of closing to pay cash for that property. And that's what a proof of funds letter will do. Okay. So we're back to the packet that you're going to be, so you either have a pre-approval address specific letter, right? Or you have a proof of funds letter, one or the other. Because it's either cash or it's a finance, correct?
Yep.
All right. So you want the anti-fraud, this should be in your packet in .loop, but the anti-fraud document. You will need, and you will probably see, if you're a good listing agent, or this is from a good listing agent, in the MLS, there will be a line of menu. There'll be a menu line item, and one of it will say documents. And in the documents, if you drop it down, it should say RPD, lead-based paint, whatever, and any other attending documents that the sellers want the buyers to have or become part of the contract. So when you drop that down, you should be able, if it's newer than 1978, all you'll see in there is the RPD. And maybe the sellers have updated the property and they put a new roof on last year and they've added a new basement and whatever. And they want the buyers to know that. So there'll be a list of amenities or a nice letter from the sellers saying what they've done to the property. The worst thing you can do as a buyer's agent is contact the listing agent, say, hey, can you tell me how old the windows are? How old's the roof? How old are the mechanicals? When they have already furnished that information to the buyers in a list of documents. Then you look like an idiot, like you haven't paid attention. So when you're looking at properties that the buyer is serious about, there should be a list, possibly. Otherwise, ask if your buyers want to know how old's the roof. you know? Anything within 5 years is considered newer. It's a good thing. So if they've remodeled the kitchen, remodeled the bathroom, added a sunroom, added a patio, all these different things, finished the basement, those are things that your buyers are gonna wanna know. When did they do it? And by the way, if they built on a patio and they built on a sunroom, did they have permits? Was it a permitted job, or did Uncle Frank do it? You gotta know. These are questions you should be asking. So back to your list. So you have your documents, your residential property, your RPD. You may or may not have a lead-based paint. You have your offer to purchase contract. Always, buyer or seller, before you start any documents, and especially before you go out to meet with a seller, you will go to the auditor's site and pull the auditor's rundown, the auditor's sheet on what that property is. Don't ever meet a seller. You don't know who the seller is. You get a call from Joe Smith. Turns out Joe Smith is the son. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, one's deceased and one's in a home and has Alzheimer's, and Joe's going to sell mom's house. Well, he may not be able to. And you wasted all this time and effort to go meet with Joe, and Joe can't even put the house on the market to begin with. So we'll talk about that in sellers, but I want you to be aware.
So you call the
before-
auditor before you even meet them?
What's that?
So you call the auditor before you even meet
You
them?
don't call. No, you can pull it up right in MLS.
Okay.
I will be right back. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm going to take a breath. Give me a minute. Okay, so we want to make sure that we have all of our paperwork intact. Now, this is the group of paperwork that you're going to be sending to the agent, to the listing agent. Let's say you're under the gun. Let's say that you are pushing for time, and it happens all the time, where you have to have your offer in like chop, like right now, and as soon as possible. And it's hard to collect all these documents because you got to have your buyer sign and this and that. You don't have to immediately submit anything but your, by the way, let me finish with the list and then I'll tell you what you need to get in. So the contract, I want to make sure that you have the auditor. It does not go to anybody. It's for your use. You should always pull that. Your first document is from the auditor's site. Pull it on that property and use the information for your contract from the auditor's site, not from MLS. MLS is not always reliable, but the auditor's site is what the go-to document is. It should be for your all of your information on the parcel and all that stuff. Okay, so the last document you need is an agency disclosure, and that talks about who represents the buyer and who represents a seller. So if you only have a limited amount of time, and if you only can send a couple of documents, you want the money documents, so the proof of funds or the pre-approval. You want the contract. You want the agency disclosure immediately to get over. Now you can talk to the listing agent. You can say, I'm preparing an offer. What do you think it's going to be? You can verbalize stuff, but it doesn't mean anything until it's in writing. Okay, but if they know they've got a good offer coming in, you might want to share it. I don't know. It depends. You have to make sure that you are not violating any confidentiality between buyers and sellers. But you'd like to maybe say, hey, can you hold on? Because I've got a really good offer coming your way. And how much is it? It's going to be 20 over, whatever. And we can comply with all the seller's needs and so on. Just have that conversation. You good? Now, if you're dealing with condos, we haven't even talked about condos. It's an entirely different animal. So if you're making an offer on condos, the rules change a little bit, okay? Do not show any condos to an FHA or a VA buyer that aren't what's called non-conforming. You have to find out if certain condos qualify to be financed. If they're cash deal or they're conventional, it's generally not a problem. You can buy anything you want, show anything you want. But if it's going to be a VA financing or an FHA or some other form of financing, here's what I want you to do. There is a website called conforming.gov, and you should check the address to find out. And these are the words I want you to find out. If you need to finance a condo, they must be conforming or warrantable. Conforming or warrantable. A good listing agent will put in the MLS that they're warrantable or conforming or whatever. But some don't know their stuff and they don't know what to do and they won't do that.
Warrantable?
Warrant, WARRANTABLE, warrantable.
Warrantable, okay.
Warrantable, okay.
Which means that they can be financed. Here's what happens. There is a certain percentage of, because condo or multifamily, and they want to make sure, the lenders want to make sure that 70 or 80% of those are owned and lived in by the owners, that they're not rented out. So if you're in a condo complex that's mostly rentals, sometimes they can't be financed because the lender wants to know that the borrower is also going to be the occupant.
What's the reason for the lender being worried about how much of it's rented out?
Because when you take out a loan, a personal loan, that says that you are writing an affidavit that you're going to occupy the property.
Okay.
So if you are, otherwise you're an investor, which means the terms and the percentages are different.
So you're saying so when you're investing in real estate, you get a different loan than somebody. Okay.
Yes, you do. You get different terms. It'll be
Okay.
higher.
So what happens? So like if you own a property, you can't just like decide to rent it out then if you still have a loan?
If it's your house, it doesn't matter. But if it's in a condo complex, there's certain rules and
Okay.
regulations.
So it's specific to condos. Okay, now I
It
get
is specific to condos. Now, your personal property, hear me out. When you buy that house, make sure you understand what I'm saying. When you buy a house, you will sign at the closing table an affidavit that says, I am the owner occupant. I am borrowing this money to pay for this house that I will be going to live in for X number of months, years, whatever. Okay, it'll be part of your loan terms.
That's
And
with any house.
if you violate it, it's mortgage fraud.
That's with any
So,
house.
what's that?
That's with any house or the
Any house.
condos?
When look, if you pay cash for it, do whatever you want, rent it out, whatever. If it's a conventional, it depends.
Okay.
But it's the terms, it's the mortgage terms that have to be adhered to. Otherwise, it's mortgage fraud. If you go and get a loan and you say you're going to live in that house and you turn around and you rent it out, you've just committed mortgage fraud.
So could somebody like go to the bank and try to like refinance or something like with their loan to try to change the terms of their loan?
Oh, you can always try to refinance it, but
Yeah.
it's generally to get lower terms. It's to get better terms. The
Yeah, I
bottom
think
line is
yeah,
you state in writing that you are going to buy this home with this money that you've borrowed for this nice low rate for X number of years under these terms because you're an owner occupant.
exactly, yeah. I was just gonna say that. If it's not
Yes.
So
owner occupied, it's different.
so in like a multi-family home, like a duplex or something, how does the terms work there? Is it like does it say you occupy part of it, but then you have the right to rent out another
Not a
part?
problem. Because
Okay.
that's part of the terms of buying that building. But
Okay.
you're still gonna own or occupy a certain part of it. And that happens all the time.
Okay.
That's a different type of loan. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so we're getting there. So be very, it's very important now. I'll talk to you about it tomorrow night when we're talking about in the contract. Okay, any questions so far? We good?
Think so.
All right, let's see now. Remember to kind of get rid of the idea of a pre-qualification. We really want pre-approvals. We want them in the process. We don't want them just to be on a whiff, you know? All right, let's through some of my other stuff. You have, I think, something in your work that says 10 ways to become a super likable person.
I'm not seeing it on this
Looks
one.
like this.
Are
Let
we
me check
talking
the.
about sellers?
Buyers, we're in buyers.
Buyers, okay.
Mm,
In fact, we're gonna switch to sellers at any minute. I just want you to.
I
what
found
want
it.
you to look, go ahead.
I said I found it.
Okay, all of the rest of the documents that are in there are ways for you to be able to reach out and deal with your buyers, to meet your buyers. We've talked about your lead generation. You have got to qualify your buyers. You've got to be able to talk to them. You've got to have self-confidence. You've got to be able to listen. I urge you to get it should be in your work there somewhere. If not, I'm pretty sure somebody at Keller has it, where you have a questionnaire, a buyer questionnaire, which is your cheat sheet, so that you can talk to your buyers and get all the information you need in preparation to have a meeting. And then there will be a buyer's packet that you will develop for yourself that'll have all the documents in it that you're gonna need. Again, I can urge you to have consumer's guides in your car to carry those around with you so that you can have those when you meet with your buyers and sellers. And you must be familiar. I will tell you tomorrow that you need to be familiar with the contracts. And it's a 14-page document. You need to go to any and all trainings regarding contracts. All you're going to be dealing with for the rest of your real estate life are contracts. And you need to be able to explain those to your buyers and to your sellers with great confidence that you understand. You want to put them in their hands so that you don't get to a situation where you've got to make an offer on a property. Oh, and bless you.
Thank you.
You've got the engineer buyer who says, oh yeah, you know what? I need time to look at the contract. I need to read that over. And they've just messed up the whole time thing, and you're not going to get that offer in on time because you didn't take the time to show it before and have that discussion. So it's very important that you have your conferences with your buyers and with your sellers. Now, what I didn't tell you is, how do you find out who these buyers are before you go to meet them? And then we're going to get into sellers. Two ways. One, you can track them on social media, find out who they are. They'll tell you virtually anything and everything about them so that you have, remember something, you want them to fall in love with you. It's very important that you have that appointment and that you walk out of there as the fair-haired child that's going to get the deal. Because if you get somebody in there that blows you away, you're not going to get the deal. So you want to be the first one in and the only one to leave. That's it. Because you're going to be so effective. And the more you know about them and the more things you have in common, to have a discussion initially, to put them at ease, to make them comfortable, make nice. Be sure you listen to what they're telling you. Ask about them. Ask about what their needs are. Ask them how long they've been looking. What's their time frame? There's a whole questionnaire. You'll have it. But the idea is to be very interested in them and their lives. If they have kids, if they have pets and all this stuff, you need to know all this, okay? So that you can have a comfortable conversation with them initially. And then you can launch into the real estate part. So do what's natural. And I always tell people, if you don't know what to do, then go back to you and say, what would I want to hear? What would I want to know? What would I want them to look like, sound like, and so on, if I were in their shoes? If you were a first-time home buyer, Mac, and you wanted to find a realtor, what would you be looking for? Follow?
Yeah.
Okay. So figure it out. All right. The other thing that you have available to you through the MLS, through Columbus Realtors, is the forewarn. Do either of you know what that is? I'll tell you.
I feel like I've heard it.
Okay, you have heard it. Forewarn is a program that is given to you as part of your dues, where you can, if you were going to come meet with me, you could look me up and see if I had any pending DUIs, or if I was a child molester, or I had any criminal background, and so on. This is
So they
not,
had me download that app yesterday. Would I be just using that for just for new like people that come to me like leads and stuff?
you betcha.
All that? Okay.
Don't you dare use it for anything else. Don't peek
Okay.
at your neighbors. Don't look at your girlfriend's other boyfriends. Don't look at your neighbors. That is a no-no. It's serious, serious offense.
Well,
You
that's
did,
not what I meant. I
I
guess I meant
understand. I understand.
okay.
But people have.
Really?
Yeah.
I just meant like so I guess at what point do you do that? Is it like when you give them the uh
Before you meet.
guide to agency
No.
or after?
Before you meet. If you didn't
Before you
know
meet?
me and let's say you did your job in your lead gen and you got a lead and somebody was really interested in meeting with you, because what is your end game? It's to get that meeting, right? You're going to meet for a
Mhm.
cup of coffee. You're going to meet at the office. Who am I meeting? Who are these people? Find out everything you can about them.
So
Find them
so
on
it would
social.
be once they approach you to have a meeting. Before you do the meeting, you look it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
It should be somebody that is really interested and that you've communicated with, that is interested in talking to you further about real estate.
Okay.
And that's
And
the
then
only,
what do we do with this information? Like
put it in your file so that when you go to meet with them, you know a little bit about these folks.
okay.
I mean, just don't tell them that, hey, you had a criminal record, but make sure
Yeah, like
that you know that back in your head. Like,
that's what I mean. Does it change anything if they have one?
That's up to you. Go with your
Okay.
gut. If you feel uncomfortable or you feel that you can't work with these people because of whatever, then that's what it's
So
supposed to. It's supposed
so
to
I
protect you and keep you safe. Is
so I
basically,
have the right to refuse business, is what you're saying.
you use it, you don't abuse it. You use it to your advantage for safety. That's what
Okay.
it's all about.
I just wanted to make sure I get the legal understanding of it so I don't accidentally use it wrong. You know what I
Here's what
mean?
I'm going to tell you. Look it up in Columbus Realtors, go to
Okay.
Forewarn and read everything you need to read about it.
Okay.
It'll tell you exactly when to use it, how to use it, and when not to use it.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know that it was available to you so that you can scope people out ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay? Fair
Yep.
enough? All right, let's flip over to sellers. Same thing with sellers. First meaningful contact, you're going to their house, you're going to sit down. Now, remember something, you're on their turf now. With buyers, you're on neutral turf somewhere. Chances are you meet them at a coffee shop, you meet them at the office, you meet them somewhere neutral. You got no agreements in place, you got no address, you got nothing. You just got conversation. You're going to meet with sellers. There's an actual address. There's a property you can look at. There's a property you can know everything about. There are real people that live in that, how long they've lived there. There's a history. There's all kinds of stuff, information that's real. You do not have any of that with buyers. Capiche? You make sense? All right.
Yeah.
So it's a different ball game. So you want to make sure that when you go to someone's home, which is their castle, their domain, it may be great, it may be a piece of junk, doesn't matter. What matters is that you are on their turf. And you get one chance to razzle dazzle them when you're in their home. You better know something about it. You got to know the market. You got to know what their neighbors sold. You got to know what you think the value will be. Now, you can't know everything because you haven't put eyes on it yet. It's very important that otherwise you just be Zillow, or you just be a, guesstimate in terms of what their current value. And they're going to ask you, well, what do you think it's worth, Mac? I mean, I'd like to have you come out. What do you think I can get for it? My neighbor, he got 350,000 and it was in contract in one day. Can you do that for me? I don't know. Maybe. But here's the thing. You would be no better than Zillow if you threw numbers at them. You want the appointment. The whole idea is to get the appointment. And you do that by having things in common, by answering them directly and honestly, except for, I would be no better than Zillow. I would only be giving you an estimate. I would be doing you a disservice. I would like to meet with you Thursday at 3 o'clock or Friday at 10 o'clock. Do either of those times work for you? No, but Saturday does. Great. What time is convenient for you? Boom, you've got an appointment, okay? You want the appointment. Now, you're going to do everything you can to look at that property from Google Sky up in here. You're going to walk around it through Google. You're going to do your CMAs. You're going to do all the due diligence that you need before you get there. The first thing you're going to do, though, before you make that phone call or call them back, is you're going to pull what? Somebody. What did I say? You pull before you talk to a buyer or seller.
You're gonna pull the forewarn, like the
The auditor. The auditor's
auditor.
report.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Make sure you have the auditor's information, because what if you're going to go and meet with Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and maybe Mr. and Mrs. Jones aren't on the deed of sale? Maybe it's in a trust. Maybe it's anything. Find out who you're meeting with, and are they in fact the proper party that can put that property on the market? If not, you got to do some more digging. You got to do some more due diligence to find out, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I don't see you on the deed. How are you related to this property? Well, I'm the power of attorney. Oh boy, isn't that great? But what they don't tell you is that they are the medical power of attorney for Mr. and Mrs. Jones, but they don't have a general power of attorney that can include putting their house on the market for Mr. and Mrs. Jones.
When
There are
people
lots
do
of
stuff
powers
like
of-
that,
What's
is
that?
it when people do stuff like that, is it generally them just not being knowledgeable, or like is it deception?
Could be both. A lot of people think because they have a power of attorney over mom and dad's health,
Yeah.
that entitles them, if mom's in a home and they're diminishing, and they said, we just gotta sell the house. Gotta sell the house. So I'm gonna call a realtor and we're gonna find out about selling the house. Okay. They can get general information, but they can't sign a listing agreement. Who owns the doggone house? And if there is a power of attorney, what kind of power of attorney is it? And can it even be utilized? We don't know. That's why I want you to go to the auditor's site and see what's going on there. And then when you see the name on it, does the name match up to who you're supposed to meet with? That's fine. That's the name on the deed. I feel comfortable with it. You might have somebody who bought the house, for fun to live in them when they were single. It's now they're going to sell it because they're going to get married, or they got married and they're moving up. But guess what? Only one person's on the deed, but we have dower in this state, and now you have to have the wife sign off on the property. There's a lot to it. So I want you to understand, I can't teach you everything. I can't teach you everything in an hour. It's not going to happen. But what I can teach you is enough to be curious about the other things to ask. And because you have mentors and trainers that will be with you for 5 or 6 transactions, you'll be fine. But when they talk to you about this stuff, you'll also be informed because I taught you. So the things that you need to know about sellers that are different than buyers is that you have to know who you're meeting. You have to know that they actually have the ability to do the listing, and you have to know who you're meeting with and who you're talking with, and that you have things in common. It's very important that you have the ability to have a conversation with these people to put them at ease. Is this making sense? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Again, consumer guide, auditor's report. You need a listing agreement. This is going to be now when you go into an opportunity in command, and it will say, do you want a buyer's opportunity, a seller? You will pull up listing or seller, probably say listing, and it'll fill in a lot of the documents that you need to have filled out or you will need to have for your transaction.
That makes it a lot easier.
Oh, it does, but you have it with buyers too. So Dot Loop has all of the documents in it. And if they're not in the Keller Williams group, which they should be, they will be or should be in the Columbus Realtors list of documents. You just put in the name that you want. All right. When you have the listing, there's so much I can tell you about that, but it's very complicated. I want you to just understand who you're meeting with, why you're there. Your job is to try to create enough interest in your ability to market. Don't ever tell them, I'm going to help you sell your house. You're going to help prepare it for market. The market's going to drive the numbers. The market's going to show you what's out there. The market history is what's going to tell you what's sold. It's all market related. And if you start to use the terms market, you will remove yourself from responsibility from the equation of being wrong, if it's wrong, because it's all market focused. And you want to be as correct as you can. And the only way you can be as close and accurate as possible is the market. Now, when you're doing your composition for your CMAs, that's a different story because you're going to have to control how to bring in the closest, most like and so on. And that's the responsibility is going to fall to you. But initially, you're going to talk in terms of the market, and then you can put all your pieces together. Okay? So everything that you're really going to be needing is in command, in the opportunities, and then your dot loop is outside of command, and you're going to be bringing the documents in, and you'll be trained on how to do that. That's another function that I don't train on. Okay, are you clear? You got that? That's where your that's where your beginning and your end is. And by the way, your documents, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side, are going to have to be submitted, and you submit them as you get them. So once you get in contract with your buyers and you've got your buyer signature, the seller signature, and you are what's called in contract, you want to make sure that those are scanned in and submitted for review. So you do it as you go along so that when you get to the end of the transaction, everything is approved. You don't want to figure out down the road that you forgot a document or that something wasn't approved or that you missed a signature. So have it looked at and submitted. Again, this is training that you will get from Keller Williams. All right, there is what is called a net to seller. It looks like this. And it is a valuable tool for you to have a discussion with the sellers about their prospective income from the sale of their property. They're going to want to know from you, what am I going to walk away with? This is only subjective at this point. It's not accurate until it closes because there are fees and changes and things that go on. But it does give you an opportunity. And in this particular case, we looked at a property that was, let's say, $400,000. And you might go up or down 25,000 on either side of it. So if you have a list price of 400,000, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, and we don't get 400,000 because of the condition, because of the location, because of whatever, but we got 395 or 398, that would be your underside number, or 375 if you want to go incrementally of 25,000. So if you got to 375 and 450, and you actually had a list price of 400, you'd have a $50,000 swing, right? And so when you add everything up, you'd know that somewhere in this range to this range, this is where you would be. And that's what you would pocket. Maybe. But it always is very subjective, and it is a sample only. And you would say that in your emails, you would say that in your documentation, you would say, this is an estimate only. These are not exact figures. They can't possibly be exact until we know exactly what we're dealing with, but we'll give you a range, and it'll give you somewhere between here and here that you can expect to realize from your transactions. Does that make it clear? But it's called a net to seller. And a seller would be interested that you would produce that for them. Okay. You have a transaction timeline, boom, right here. And you also have a checklist for sellers. These are two documents that are going to be your cheat sheets. Remember I said use a transaction timeline when you can? There it is right there. See it? Whether it's buyer or seller doesn't matter. It's when you plug in dates and times and title company and all the things that you have, you now have an oversheet of an overview of what you're looking at in the transaction as you go forward. Now, when you have the buyers, you have more documents to start out with. When you have the seller, you have more documents once you're in the transaction, because there may be counteroffers, there may be addendums, there may be a variety of other things. There'll be inspections, there'll be requests for remedies, there'll be a whole long list of things that you will need to deal with, excuse me, that you will need to deal with in that transaction on the listing side. There's way more to deal with on the listing side than on the offer to purchase side, because you started with nothing except an address and a price. And so you had a few documents, but when the offer was accepted, you now have way more information that you need to deal with. Are we good?
Yep.
All right. The seller or sellers will fill out in their own hand. There is a 5-page document called the Residential Property Disclosure, the RPD, that they fill out. We don't touch this document. We can sit with them. We can sit next to them. We can answer their questions, but it's a self-explanatory document that they should answer to the best of their ability, because it's really a reflection of what they know about that property. And they should fill it out as honestly as possible, even warts and all. If there's something that they know is a problem with their property, they better spit it out now, because it's better to deal with it now when you have a good, ready, willing, and able buyer, that you can deal with it between the parties than hiding something and having it found out later. So you let the sellers know they're going to probably be dealing with an inspection or an inspector, and the request for remedies. Well, I'm not going to fix anything. I'm not doing anything. It's as is. And that's the way you're going to write it up. It's an as is condition. Okay. So you write it up in as is condition. And the inspector comes in and says, wow, we did a radon inspection and you've got serious radon. Here's the radon report. The minimum or the acceptable is 4.0, and you've got 18.9 in your basement. You're not going to fix it? Oh, yes, you are. Oh, yes, you are. You're going to find a way to work around that remedy thing. So they're going to be sellers that are gonna push back, I'm not fixing anything. Well, if you wanna sell your house, you are. And by the way, if it's an FHA buyer, I now have to report it. You have to have, we need a new residential property disclosure because it wasn't on the first one. And it's gonna stay, the inspection report is gonna stay in the files and it's gonna stay available for the next 3, 6 months, whatever it is. And oh, by the way, if you don't disclose it, I have to. Well, the buyer can walk, okay, but now we're gonna have to get a new buyer. And you're actually going to have to disclose it, or I am. You with me?
Yeah, so do you get to review that document they filled out just to make sure they put everything correctly so that you can disclose it?
Oh, you talk about the RPD?
Yeah, the one they fill out.
Oh, yeah, you review it, they sign it, and it becomes part of the file. In fact, as the listing
Okay.
agent, remember I said that you actually put that in MLS as part of the
Yeah.
documents. So now we're on the listing side, you're the listing agent, and now you've got a buyer's agent who wants to make an offer on that property or wants to show it and is interested, and now they look at the RPD and they see the RPD and they say, yeah, it's okay, we can deal with that. And they make
Okay.
an offer, or they go, nope, 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 not interested, and they walk.
Okay.
Same thing with the lead-based paint. It is another document that if it's older, 1978 or older, they need the lead-based paint document for that too. So when you start to do your paperwork for your listing, let's say, congratulations, you got the listing, woohoo. There is a document that you'll be filling out, the MLS. You will learn how to add a listing to the MLS. And part of what you're going to be using is this document right here that tells you everything about that seller's house. You want to make sure that you understand that they have a gas stove, not an electric stove. You want to make sure that you understand that they have an attached garage, that they have a finished basement, that they have all of these different things. And by the way, what document are you going to be using for square footage? The auditor's information. Because we humans put that listing into MLS, but it doesn't allow you to make mistakes on square footage anymore and stuff because it autofills from the auditor's site. But you'll learn how to do all that. You will have to have your sellers look at this. This is what's actually going into MLS. Does it accurately reflect their property? Did you get the number of rooms right? Did you say what you said about them? Is that accurate? Because we make mistakes. And you have them sign it and acknowledge that, yes, that looks good to me, or no, we need to change these things. And you'll send them a copy of the MLS sheet that is now shown as an active listing, probably. And they will say, I like this, or this needs to be changed, or this needs to be tweaked, and so on. Okay? Everything good? All right, we have a few more things to go through. We have, if you have, let's say you're, and this is going to be UMAC mostly, I think, if you have rural or unique properties, which you might have in your area, there is a form for that. Historic buildings, things that are unusual. There are forms for virtually everything. It says rural unique property checklist, and that's at Columbus Realtors. And that's a whole other document. What if you have a listing and it has a septic tank and a well? You have to look at that differently too. And
There's
you
probably
have
a lot of those over here.
yes, there will be. So
Okay.
for Nessip, he's probably going to be looking at subdivisions, and he might be looking at downtown and looking at historic and places that are more in that genre. But for you, you'll be looking probably at older homes, and you'll be looking at
Mhm.
homes, unless there are new subdivisions being built out there, and probably there are. But you'll be looking at historic or unique properties. I can't give you a lot of information on land, but different ball games. different trainers, you're gonna need different information, but what I need to tell you is that when you have unique, out of the ordinary properties, be sure to get assistance and help on how to do that. Because it's a
Okay.
very, very difficult, you need to be very specific. In order to represent your sellers properly, you really probably need to find a Keller Williams agent that knows about that and make a referral. Just say, hey, I've got this situation. I don't know a lot about it. I'd like you to, you've got all the energy and the information, and I'll take a referral. I'll give you the client as long as everybody agrees, and you'll pay me a referral fee. And then let them do the
Okay.
work, and you can follow them along or or whatever you're gonna do. But sometimes we have to back away from a situation because it's way over our heads. And in order to best serve the client, which is what our job is, then we should put them in the best hands available to do the job for the best ability that we can on behalf of the client. Okay? So there are different forms and they're all in there. Now, there are way too many different unique situations than I could even begin to tell you, such as broker exclusive. So if you have a seller and they do not want to put it in MLS, they would like to just make it exclusive with Keller Williams Greater Columbus, just for our brokerage, your brokerage, because it has 200 or 300 agents, and they know that, or you will tell them that they have lots and lots of very specific agents that have very specific buyers. And maybe you're in a situation where you have a listing client that wants to be very private about this. They don't want it in MLS. They want to get it sold, but they don't want to publicize it. And there are methods for that as well. Okay. And it might just be exclusive to the brokerage. And there are signatures and there are different forms and so on that you need to be aware of. I'm throwing a lot at you tonight, and I realize it's going to be quite confusing. This is a big piece of what you're learning. The listing agreement. It's only 3 pages, but it's very intense, and we'll go over all that tomorrow. There are in your documents the different, I'm looking at the back part of your notebook, which is where I am, is all Keller Williams related, and it's Keller Williams methods and how to qualify and scripting and seller's consent forms. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here that I don't teach. This is all part of your Keller Williams packet that you will get when you are with your mentors and your trainers. You have all of the in-depth information. I haven't talked to you about open houses yet. I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. You want to make sure that you are prepared to do an open house. And even if you don't have any listings, if you can get knowledgeable in how to do an open house, that's going to open up a world of opportunity for you in terms of earning opportunity. If you can learn how to do a proper open house with all of the elements of what you need to be doing for the seller, you offer them that opportunity to make sure that they would allow you to have an open house. That opens up the world, but you get to meet the neighbors, you get to market to the neighbors, you get to invite the neighbors. It's a really great opportunity. I would never miss that, even if the market was super hot, which it is, and you could get an offer on that property tomorrow. You might still want to hold back for a couple days or a week and have an open house to enable the seller to open up perhaps more opportunities, and also for you to meet the neighbors, let the neighbors see what you're doing, let them see the work that you do on behalf of your seller clients, so that when they're ready to sell, one, they know you. You can go around and door knock, and you can tell them that on Sunday from 1 to 3 you're having an open house at the Jones House, 123 Main Street, and you would like to invite them. I don't know if you know the Joneses, if you've met them, But you are certainly welcome to come and preview the house. And by the way, if you have any friends or relatives or neighbors that you would like to have live near you, people that you work with, this would be a great time to invite them to the open house. So it opens up your horizon. And
Are there any costs to an open house?
yes,
Okay, what would
to
those
do it
be?
right, to do it right, yes, there are. But you really need to be on top of the publication of putting it in MLS so that you get it out to as many people as you can. I have a whole whole rundown on open houses. It's an art form. Excuse me. And you need to be prepared to put it out there ahead of time to make sure that it's in MLS, to make sure that it's on social media, to make sure that you publicize it in a way that you can get people to respond to your open house. And when you're there, you need to know how to hold the open house. You do not want to ask people that come into the open house, do you have a real estate agent? Are you working with a realtor? What are they going to tell you? Oh, sure I do. Oh, yes, I do. That means they've just slammed the door in your face. What you need to ask them, and there's scripting for this, but basically along the lines of, welcome, how did you hear about the open house? Come on in, welcome. The sellers have asked me to get your information before I can allow you to preview the house or before you can preview the house. If they don't want to give out information, I'm sorry, but that's a seller's request for safety, for their protection and safety. They want to know who's been in their house. So that's number one. You'll have sign-in sheets and so on. Name, phone number, if they have been working, have you been working with anyone? In other words, how long have you been looking? Have you looked in this area before? No, I haven't. Well, how long have you been looking? I've just started looking. Who's been helping you? Who's helping you in your search? Well, I have a realtor. What's their name? I'd be happy to send them information on this property. You see, go back and forth to the extent that you can to make sure that you find out for real if they have representation. And you can say to them, and it can be kind of a fun thing to say, if they say, you know, I'm actually not working with anyone, just say, well, I'd be happy to have you preview this property. If it's something you're interested in, I'd be happy to help you submit an offer. If you are working for another realtor and just doing an open house, you do not represent the seller, but you can't share information that is privileged. But you can certainly represent the buyer in making an offer. Okay? The other thing is you can also ask the buyer if you can apply for that position. If you're not currently working with a realtor, I would love to apply for that position. And then you can share a conversation. That's a good door opener, but you don't want to say, are you working with a realtor? Because chances are they're going to say, yes, they are. And they should be able to share with you. Now, you also want to have a sign-in sheet that's signed with a couple of names and information on it. Sorry.
Sorry, my cat was scratching at the door and I didn't want to interrupt you.
Not a problem. I see the cat right in the corner. So open houses are another pathway for you to earn income. You can meet unrepresented buyers. You can get to meet the neighbors. And a great way to meet the neighbors, which is not knocking on the door soliciting, it's by way of inviting them to an open house to attend the open house and let them know the open house is going on. And by the way, we'd love to have you bring your friends or relatives or somebody you work with who might be interested in being your neighbor. You get to pick your new neighbors that way. And you can even go as far as having a greeting card that you could buy at the dollar store if you want. It says, good luck on your move, sorry to see you go, something like that. And you can ask your neighbors if they would mind signing it for the, you may or may not know the Joneses, but would you mind signing their card and wishing them well on their journey? They'll think that's a big deal. They'll think that's great. Okay, so that's kind of your open house. Now, how do you qualify seller prospect? There is a sheet for that, but I'm going to give you some notes. You want to find out your property that you're listing, there are three things that are going to help move that property and market that property. And that's the price that you set on it, where it's located, and the condition. Those are the three things that are really important to look at when you go out on a listing appointment. What does the neighborhood look like? You should know that ahead of time. You should have walked around by Google, or you can even drive it, whatever. Know as much as you can ahead of time. And there are things that the seller needs to look at from their perspective when they're getting ready to market their property. I didn't say sell it. When they get ready to market their house, they're going to put it out there to the world. Right now, it's their castle. It's where they live. It's where they're comfortable. It's maybe where they've raised their kids, and maybe they're downsizing and they're selling it because they're going to move to a condo. By the way, sellers become buyers. So you might have a double-edged whammy there if you can get your sellers to list with you and also let you help them buy their other property. It's a win-win for everybody. Because you've got that relationship going on and you want that to be a comfortable situation. But one of the things you want is you want the sellers to take a look at their property from a buyer's perspective. And I'm going to give you some things to look at from that perspective. There's the really 4 or 5. I'm going to give you 5 C's that the seller needs to be aware of. And the first thing that a buyer is going to look at when they come to look at that property is the curb appeal. They're going to drive up in front and they're going to look at the curb appeal. So number 1 you're going to write down is curb appeal. And you can have this conversation with your sellers if you're getting close to listing. Hey, here's how we have to really think about it. You have a lovely home. I'd be proud to list it for you. There's lots of things that we can do together, but the way that I can help you is that it was your home, it is your home, and now we're going to turn it into a commodity. We're going to turn it into a product that we're going to try to find somebody else to love it as much as you do. And this is how we do it. We look at it with an outside eye, and the first thing is curb appeal. Then we get to the front door and we open the front door, and the first thing we notice when we go in is the condition of the property. What condition is it in on the inside? And one of those things would be cleanliness. Is it clean? So condition. Is there junk all around, stuff everywhere? Are they hoarders? Are they neat? Is it color? Is it appealing? Is it updated? All these different things are going to be very helpful. But color is also part of that. Have they decided to paint every wall in every room a different color? Do they have carpet in every room? Every room's a different color. Or is it gorgeous? Is it neutral? Is it primed? Is it ready to market tomorrow? These are things we have to look at. So curb appeal, condition, color, cleanliness, and one more, clutter. Okay. Those are the things that a seller should be looking at from a buyer's perspective. And if they are seeing what a buyer's seeing, what are they willing to fix? What are they willing to do? What are they willing to paint or repair and get it in condition to market? Because that's exactly what we're doing. We are not getting it ready to sell. We're getting it ready and prepared for the market. The market will drive the price. We're going to put a reasonable, fair list price on it that we feel is based on everything that we know, but the market will drive it. Now, if you get into a situation where they're going to argue with you because the people down the street have the same house, and it's just like mine, and they sold it for $500,000 and they got contracts on it and they got overlist and they're going to blah, 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 whatever. You're going to have to look and say, are they similar? You should know that already. You should know what the neighbor sold it for, how long it sat on the market. Was it at list? Was it over list? Was it under list? What did they do to upgrade that property? What do they have that's better or worse than this property? What's the condition? Maybe this property is grandma and grandpa's house. And it's full of stuff and it hasn't been remodeled for 20 years. But it is identical footprint to the house down the street that the younger couple bought with small kids. They've remodeled it. They've added a deck on the back because they want to grill outside. They've spiffied it up. They put in a new kitchen because that's what they were going to do. So it's nothing like the house you're in. And you're going to somehow have to have that conversation. Because their expectation, the people that you're with, is that they're going to get the same price as that gorgeous home that went out in a day at 20,000 over list. And that's a tough conversation, a tough argument to have. But because you already know what happened there, because you've done your homework, you have all your arguments in place as to what's going on. So can you list it for the same price as the other one? You should not, probably not. And if you do, it's going to sit there. So now you have to have a conversation about, we're going to have a wake-up call here at some point, and we're going to have to reduce the price. Why would we want to do that? Why don't we price it in the current condition, price it to sell, and let the market drive it up? Because the one thing you do have in common is location. And the one thing you do know is that the bones are good and that the structure is good and the layout is good and it's desirable. But it needs to be modernized and conditioned. So account for that going in, and you'll surprise yourself and let the market drive it up because people will buy it for the location. See the difference? Okay. That is, let me see what other notes. The key points that you need to find out are the upgrades within 5 years. You have to ask them what they would want to sell for today. If you were going to list it today, what price would you want to put on it? What do you think would be a fair price? What are you looking for? And then see what they say. But you should be well armed by the time you get there to see what the condition is and take that into consideration. Now, you won't be prepared for that necessarily because it can be better than or worse than your expectations. And so your initial meeting and conversation is to put eyes on it to see how you can adjust better or worse than expectation. And part of that's going to be based on your initial conversation with them, is what have they done? And if they haven't done anything, there's your answer. You should be pretty much spot on. If they've done improvements, now you've got to put a price on those improvements. And what did they actually put in there? It probably you haven't hit the value yet because it's better than you expected. But you won't know that until you see what you're dealing with. When are they ready to put it on the market? And are they looking for another property? Do they need to sell this one to buy another property? And if so, you can have that discussion, how you can help them. If they're moving to another area, you're with Keller Williams. Keller Williams is all over the world. You can make a referral to your counterpart somewhere in Timbuktu, it doesn't matter. Get that referral, help them with the purchase and help them with a sale. If they're moving locally, you certainly would like to be their buyer's agent and help continue that relationship and help find them something. If they've been in it a long time and they have a lot of equity, there's what's called bridge loans. If they need to take the equity out of this house to buy another house, there are bridge loan lenders that you can talk to that can take the equity out of this and move it so that they can right now start to look for their next property. They don't have to wait to have the cash in hand. So it can speed things up and move it along. Okay? What questions do you have, if any? I know I have drowned you in stuff. which is what I'm supposed to do. Was there anything that you didn't understand or you have concerns about? Here's what I want you to do, both of you. Does not have to be tonight, does not have to be tomorrow. But part of your homework or your business building experience, of course, is to do your business plan and do the things that we talked about. And your lead generation, do the things we talked about. But in this particular case, I would like you to do a fake buyer representation and a fake seller representation in Command. I want you to put in a fake, go into Command and put in a contact, whatever you want to call them. It can be your parents, could be anything, and put them in there, and then take that transaction and look at the paperwork and do all of that, and then do the same thing if you were going to go on a listing. If you have a parent or a relative or a friend and you could pretend to list their property and go through the steps, because that's how you're going to learn. That's what's going to help you. And you definitely should go in and put contacts in MLS. You should definitely put yourself in as a contact on searches and do some searches. What if you were going to go buy a house? Put yourself in as a buyer and do a search. And what comes up with your criteria? And those are exercises you should be doing. And that's how you will learn. Because it's better that you experiment on yourself or somebody you know ahead of time than being confronted with a real buyer and you go, oh my God, now what do I do? I don't know how to do this. So practice, and you can practice by doing it on something that is similar, but not real. And then it will walk you through all those steps. Questions, comments?
I don't think so.
Are you wiped out?
Wiped out.
Are you wiped out?
Wouldn't say wiped out.
Okay. But you're full of stuff.
Yeah.
There's definitely a
Yeah.
lot of information to, yeah.
Well, you need to process all this stuff,
Yeah.
and it has been recorded, and you certainly can go through this again. And you've got your notes. I encourage you to get your white books. It's so much easier if we
Yeah.
were in the same room and you had your white books and you could make your notes in your books, because you would have them forever. Tomorrow, we're going to go through contracts. I want you to have an offer to purchase, and I want you to have a listing agreement. Those two things at least, okay? There are many, 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 many documents, and I don't go through all of them. I go through the contracts, and there's a lot to it. Like I say, the listing agreement is 3 pages, and the offer to purchase is 14. And there's a lot in there. And please, if you can have those and print it out and have a highlighter, you'll be doing yourself a favor. So if you can, and those documents, I don't care if you print them two-sided, doesn't matter to me.
Do you know
It's
how many
okay.
pages it is?
What's that?
Do you know how many pages it is? The last one for tomorrow?
It'd be a total of 17 pages if you print both documents.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
so I will see you both tomorrow, and let's try to whip through those. And again, I'll be doing nothing for you if you can't print those out and write on them, because there's a lot of writing and there's a lot of highlighting, and I'll walk you through.
So I clicked on it. If I'm on the right thing, it has 86 pages.
No, it
Not
doesn't.
sure if it,
No, it doesn't. You go into dot loop.
oh, dot loop. Okay. I was on the materials for
No,
tomorrow.
no, no, no. That's in your book. You
Okay.
have these things in your book. You wouldn't have to print it if you had your book.
So which part on the dot loop am I printing?
The offer to purchase, which is in the buyers section.
Okay, I'm just gonna write all these down that way.
Just your offer to purchase and your exclusive listing agreement.
Okay.
Why is this ringing? I have my ringer off. It's ridiculous. There's a lot of pages in your books that I don't work with, I don't deal with, but they're for your benefit when you're working with your teams, your mentors, your trainers, etc. It goes to the next level, because once we say adios tomorrow, you will be in their hands and you will have all of the information that we talked about this week that should have prepared you for those meetings with your folks. Okay, everything we've talked about over the last few nights is in preparation. Remember I told you the first night, I'm like setting a table, and it's preparing you for your discussions with your mentors, your trainers, to so that you understand, you readily understand, and you can quickly get to where you need to be in terms of earning an income. So this is just the very beginning of getting you familiar with everything, so that when you get into that process, it will be very familiar to you and you can hit the ground running.
So
So-
is the official name for the exclusive listing contract, is it the exclusive right to sell listing contract?
Yes.
Okay.
And then it's the
Got
offer to
that one.
purchase.
Still
That
looking
will
for
be
that one.
that. If you go into Dot Loop and you go into Columbus Realtors, you'll find them faster. But it won't be the Keller Williams. You really need the Keller Williams documents. Now, what I'm going to go over with you is not necessarily the Keller Williams offer to purchase. It will be different. And by the way, there are different Keller Williams offices, and they've had their own tweaks. Okay, so Greater Columbus is what you're going to want, and it will be similar to what I'm going to give you. It will all be there, but it won't be the exact document that you will have in front of you. I just want you to be familiar with the document. And that's exactly what you're going to be getting tomorrow. Is you will become familiar with the offer to purchase and familiar with the listing agreement. Does that make sense? Nessa, any questions?
No, I'm good so far. I'm in dot loop and looking for the documents. Yeah.
All right, go into the Columbus Realtors part of it. When it shows you the documents or the templates, it says templates, right?
Yeah.
All right, click on templates and look for Columbus Realtors.
Okay.
Tell me when you're there.
I need to get the Columbus.
And that's only for the purpose of finding the contracts. Again, the contracts that you're actually going to be dealing with are the Keller Williams Greater Columbus in the packets that are housed in your buyer packet and your seller packet in the templates. So if you see that long list of templates that you're looking through, you've got lots and lots of choices, right?
Well, I'm on Columbus Realtors right now. I see CREX, Flex, Supra, Columbus Realtors.
No. That's not where I want you. I want you in Dot Loop.
Yeah, I was in dot loop.
Okay. So Columbus Realtors, Flex and all that is not in Dot Loop.
Templates.
Is that your cat?
No, that's my printer. I'm trying to get it to work.
Okay. Well, you don't need to print them out with me tonight. between now and tomorrow,
Okay.
where you can find them. I don't need them tonight because we're gonna do this tomorrow. I just want you to have them available in hard copy because it will not do you any good on the screen. I don't have a PowerPoint for that. I don't use a PowerPoint for that. Okay. So I want to make sure, speaking of which, give me a second here. Go here. All of these different things that are in the PowerPoint, we've talked about the financing, the different types of financing that you're going to have. This is back in buyers real quick, just as a recap. All of these different types of loans, you don't need to be familiar with. You need to talk to your lenders and they will familiarize you with these. So, but you should have an understanding of the terminology. It's very important that you understand there are many different types of loans. And by the way, there are many different types of loans outside of the lenders, such as USDA, such as OFA, and so on. So your lenders can tell you about all these different things. Flip your brain around for buyers right now, real quick. This is the same for buyers and sellers, that your buyer's presentation needs to cover all these things. What's your plan? What's your strategy? What are your goals? How do you share those goals and marketing ideas and so on with your buyers? And then setting up a showing. This is on the showing process. You need to know how to do that. Okay, you have all of this. So you need to map out a route. You need to set showing appointments. You don't show up early and you don't show up late without changing that with a showing service. Very important. Ties back into lockbox abuse. There are stringent rules and regulations when you're working with buyers. Something that we haven't talked about yet. Two things. When you're working with buyers, they are not allowed to go into someone's property on a showing and snap pictures throughout the property. Now, if they want to do Facebook Live, or they want to do something where they've got a partner or a spouse who's remote and the other one is previewing the property and they want to look at it with them remotely or through the internet or whatever, you can do that. Anything is possible, or virtually anything is possible, if you have written permission of the sellers. You need written permission to make sure that your buyers don't abuse being in someone else's property, and you should have that discussion with them right off the top. When I show you property, we will not be allowed to go into someone's property, so don't take out your cell phone and snap pictures. It violates the MLS rules. However, if we need to do it because you want to show the house to your husband or wife, I'll make that arrangement for us. Okay? Very important. You must understand the lockbox rules and regulations. Anybody can open a door, but you don't violate that by giving out codes and combinations and keys and so on. And then we've talked about the other things, but photos are real important. When it comes to the sellers, let me finish this up real quick. Your script sessions, you've got to understand what you're going to be saying and how you're going to be doing that. So practice and find an accountability partner to help you with how you're doing that. Okay. Let me get this out of the way. A second. So let me close that out. And second over here. All right. See if I can get you into this. You can see it. You're here with me for a minute. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, good. So when we're talking about sellers, we've talked about all of this. Okay, your scripts, of course, all the things that you need. Excuse me, let's can get rid of that. You can put it on a tour with one of the realty associations here. Make sure that you get all of your listings in MLS so that they're done properly. Open houses, we've talked about all this stuff. Stop me if there's something that you're questioning. Staging techniques, there might be staging. Do they have to clear out the house? No, they don't. Do they have to take down all the pictures? No, they don't. But it should be clean and neat. Remember, we talked about cleanliness, we talked about clutter, we talked about all those things. Make sure that it's in condition to put on the market. Again, we just talked about this. Here's what I do want to show you, is if there are things in the property that the seller does not want to include, such as light fixtures. Remember, there's a difference between fixtures, all right? Fixtures are what's attached or takes a tool to remove. And if they do not want them to stay, then they must take them down ahead of the showing, or you have to put a disclaimer in your agent remarks that dining room furniture, antique dining room furniture, antique dining room fixture does not convey. What conveys and what doesn't convey needs to be spelled out. And make sure that you understand that the seller also needs to remember that they are responsible, if it's a condo, that they are responsible for getting the HOA or condo docs. It is part of the contract, which you will see tomorrow. So these two things are very important. Make sure if there's ceiling fans that are up and the seller does not want the ceiling fan to stay, I don't know why they wouldn't, but let's say they don't. They need to replace it, put something else in its position. You need to find out if the mirrors in the bathroom that are decorative are attached, or are they just hanging on a hook? It's important because buyers have the expectation of walking into that house on the day of purchase and those beautiful mirrors that were in the bathroom are gone. Go, what the heck happened? You're supposed to leave those. Those are fixtures, they're attached. No, they weren't. They were just hanging on a picture hook. So these things need to be spelled out very clearly. Make sure that you have that conversation with the sellers, all right? And then, of course, your scripting, and then the homework, as I mentioned to you, you really want to do a mock listing, and you really should attend an open house, and you should attend a new build and see what's out there. So that's kind of where you are in the grand scheme of things with this stuff. And so it's important that you understand what you need to convey to your sellers in terms of their understanding on their listing and all that good stuff. Okay, get out of here. Oh, all right. So I stopped the screen sharing. So that's what we're talking about in buyers and sellers. And I think you're both really well equipped after tonight to have these conversations with your Keller Williams folks and understand what they're trying to tell you, understand what you need, understand where to go. You're equipped to have conversations with leads and to do some lead generation, to do your business plan. You're equipped to do a lot of stuff right now, and it can be very overwhelming. So we need to all take a breath. And tomorrow, again, there's no slideshow and no PowerPoints or anything. We're going to talk about contracts. So if you have any questions, I'm going to ask you tomorrow about your ahas to this point and what you've taken from these sessions that's been meaningful to you. And it really needs to be important to you, not to me. So make sure that you come tomorrow so we can have a little bit of a conversation about that as we get started. And if you have any questions or anything I can answer for you, again, let me know what I can do to help you. And there will be an evaluation form you should have in your stuff, and you will be able to evaluate me and how I helped you or didn't help you, what meant for you, because I want them to have that information. They want to know if this was meaningful to you and what you learned, if that was meaningful. So that's all going to be part of tomorrow. And then it's bittersweet that I wish you well and throw you out of the nest and you're on your way.
Well, do you teach any other classes, or is it just the fast track and the crammers before the?
For Keller, this is all I
Yeah.
teach. But I
Okay.
do teach the other courses such as the crammer, I teach that. But
Yeah.
you're way past that. I do teach that for Keller. And I do teach the core classes, so I teach law, ethics. There's a bunch of other stuff. You can go to my website if you want and take a look at what I teach. And
Okay. What's your website?
it's it's rekickstart101.com.
Hold on, my printer's broke.
That is the noisiest printer I've ever heard. I thought the cat was
It's
scratching.
it's an old printer. We got it for free, and I don't think it works very well. I got 2 pages out of there, but the other one just jammed it. So, what was your website? I didn't hear what you said because I interrupted
It's
you.
RE like real estate.
R what real estate?
RE
RE.
kickstart101.com. And if we were in the classroom together, I always put this nice display out, and it has all the Keller
Oh,
Williams paraphernalia, and you are in great hands. You're with a great brokerage, which is your market center. Remember to call it a market center.
yeah.
And you're in great hands. And they care about your training and care about your teaching. So they will guide you and train you. They don't want you to make mistakes. They don't want you to
Yeah.
look like an idiot. They want you to be prepared and confident when you go out to meet with people, and you will be ready to do all that. Remember not to apologize for being new. You're not new anymore. There are hundreds of people ahead of you that are newer than you are. So that's old news.
Yeah.
And everybody has to learn somewhere. So we're in the learning curve. And that's what you can tell people. Look, I'm with a great company. I'm with the top brand in the world. You know, Keller Williams agents are on one side or the other, buy, sell side 25% of the time. Everybody knows our brand, and we are there to help you. And believe me, I have plenty of backup and support that I can help you. And the good news that I am new is that I can give you 100% of my attention. And other agents can't. So
Yeah.
I would love to have the opportunity to apply for the job and have you hire me to help you realize your dreams or help you realize what you're looking for. I would love to have that opportunity and be that person for you. You got to ask for it. And that, my dear friends, is what you have to offer. So I look forward to our evening together tomorrow, and we'll get through the contracts, and I hope you have a splendid day tomorrow, and until we meet again.
All right. You have a great night.
All right. Good night, guys. See you
Thanks,
tomorrow.
guys.
Bye.
Take good care. See ya.